start.
Ye- Yes, I will.
Yo.
Namaste and good evening, everyone. Happy to meet all of you after perhaps some 3 weeks or 4 weeks of not showing up in these meetings on Thursday evenings. We apply our minds to yet another interesting topic, and that is about observing the whole movement of life. What will happen if we observe the whole movement of life rather than a fragment of it, one side of it, one compartment of it? The subject that we are taking up has a second line of title also. It says the emergence of a new approach to things. A new approach to things. So we are connecting, observing the whole movement of life with the emergence of a new approach to things. We badly need a new approach to things, for the way we are presently living is marked by constant conflict, constant anxiety, constant friction within ourselves. Here and there, we clearly notice that the conflict within us is no different from the conflict in the outer world. The outer world gets reflected in our own within, and what we have within gets reflected in the outer world. The outer situation remaining the same, different people among us experience different degrees of conflict, or some do not experience any conflict with regard to some situation. A situation may agitate some of us, make some of us happy, and then there are many others to whom the situation doesn't mean anything at all. So, is this difference in the impact on different people merely because they have probably much to do with the situation, or they are the losers in a situation, and another group have nothing to do with the situation? Sometimes it seems to be so, but I would say that the matter is more than that. Sometimes when something happens right in our neighborhood, right in our family under the same roof, right in the organization where we are working together, the impact can be different. That exposes a certain element in human life, and that is no other than self interest. Something happens, and the conditioned mind in ours quickly connects it with some so called self interest. This person coming to power, that person going out of power, this person getting a wonderful promotion, and that person getting fired from her job, etc., are quickly connected by our memory laden mind, a mind which is burdened with memories, to a sense of I gain here, I lose there. This I and the gain or loss to that little I constantly fragments our perception of life. Therefore, we must first define very clearly what is meant by observing the whole movement of life. In fact, Sri Krishnaji has said in his talk in February 1982, right in Mumbai, not far from most of you who are in Indore. Though these online talks, I don't know whether it has majority from Indorians or non-Indorians, because the online removes all boundaries and borders. But still, since the banner under which we get together on Thursday evenings is Krishnamurti Study Circle Indore, I'm going to call all of you Indorians. For this 1.5 hours, I am also an Indorian. So, not far from Indore, there is Mumbai, and not many years before, but just 4 years before he passed, in 1982 February, Krishnaji said, if one can observe holistically, observe the whole movement of life as one, conflict with its destructive energy not only ceases, but out of that observation comes a totally new approach to life. So, in addition to what we have incorporated in the subject chosen this evening, observing the whole movement of life, he also has said if one can observe holistically, there lies the main point. Normally, we tend to observe anything from our own self centered angle of view. What is in it for me? What do I lose in it? So, our own gain and loss come into the picture. But what is this our gain, our loss? Many a time, some news frightens us when we imagine we are going to be the losers. But very soon, things turn out in such a way that the whole development was to our benefit. So I must say, this self centered approach is many a time an unintelligent approach. Many a time, we actually operate out of limited intelligence. The self itself is a petty affair, but we get very attached to ourselves. So, what is the difference between observing the whole movement of life and observing it holistically? Perhaps both of them do not mean two entirely different things. In some sense, both of them mean the same thing too. However, a bit of a difference can be perceived. There's a different flavor to the expression observing life holistically and observing the whole movement of life. Holistically means we do not see from our own personal compartmentalized angle of view. We see it from the angle of view of everyone. We stand in the shoes of others. They are also human beings. We stand in the shoes of both the oppressors and the oppressed, both the haves and the have nots, both the ones that are at the receiving end and from the angle of view of those who are at the giving end. In life, we find there are many, many people, stakeholders, as they call in business language. Who are the stakeholders? in this scenario? And are we heavily identified only with one group of stakeholders? Many a time it is not any group, it is purely this I, me, and my. Just one person. Nobody else matters. No one else counts. Sometimes we tend to be so selfish that even our family members, even those who have been with us for years, do not count. They are also thrown off the wagon, and we continue to ride all alone. Not doing so, if we see it from the angles of view of other stakeholders, then there is a holistic flavor. And the whole movement of life also has this flavor to it. That expression has this significance that the movement in terms of not only what is expressed, but what is unexpressed. Hidden motives, hidden agendas, hidden purposes, and what meets the eyes right away, and what will come to the surface in due course of time. If we allow our intelligence deep within to operate, then we will see the whole situation holistically and we'll see the whole movement of life. Therefore, friends, this evening's theme is intimately connected with what is elsewhere known as awakening of intelligence. We look at ourselves as a little being and then we become little beings. But if we look at ourselves as all humanity, I am a human being more than I being an Indian or an American, a rightist or a leftist, more than I being someone who speaks this language and that person being someone who speaks that language. There are many criteria, as you know, color of the skin, academic qualification, numerous things. Thus, these will make us small. Maybe they have a place here and there. They cannot be completely dismissed. They do have a place, but the lack of intelligence in you and me expresses it when we apply certain self descriptions at irrelevant places. Self description. I am of this group. I am of this background. May have a certain limited role at places. I am a vegetarian. I go and look at places to eat, and then I pick a vegetarian place of eating. So there it is relevant. But bringing that idea of I am vegetarian anywhere and everywhere, working on an experiment of physics or chemistry, and in my team there are two others who are meat eaters. If my mind gets worked up, oh my, I have to work on this physics experiment along with these two meat eaters. I've heard from a very renowned surgeon in Los Angeles. He himself said to me, now he is very senior, but some 20 years ago, when he was working at a hospital in New York, he happens to be from Andhra Pradesh, and like most of us, he is dark skinned, relatively dark skinned compared with the white Americans. And there was some patient who needed to be operated. And the patient was apparently a bit rich and well placed in the New York society. And when he came to know that this Dr. Reddy was going to operate on him. He expressed a certain objection. He said to the hospital management, kindly ensure that Dr. Reddy does not operate on me. Can't you ask Mr. Thomas to operate on me? And Dr. Reddy came to know. And when he shared this with me a couple of years ago over lunch, he said I was a bit embarrassed and a bit hurt, no doubt. But I just said, whatever the management decides, uh, if I have to operate, I will operate. If this patient doesn't want to be operated by an Asian with a colored skin, so be it. And Dr. Reddy told me laughingly, I told the management, you know what? Sorry, I can't change my color for one day. For one day, I cannot change from a little brown skin to white skin to be able to operate on this man. Convey to him my regrets. So apparently, Dr. Reddy took it lightly and joked about it. And that patient got operated by somebody of white skin. So in human life, on various grounds, we divide. And when we are with so-called our group, we feel happy. Ha ha ha, all of us are birds of one feather. Birds of the same feather flock together, goes the old saying. We feel good. But the price we pay for that kind of excessive identification, you know, who operates should not matter really, for the blades and the knives and other surgical apparatus and the knowledge and the skills and do not have anything to do with the color of the skin. So that's where I introduced the idea where it is irrelevant. The color of skin is irrelevant when it comes to performing an advanced surgery. So at a number of places, you know, we bring irrelevant criteria to a situation. The price we pay is suddenly we find ourselves with people of so called another group and we feel jittery. We feel very much out of place. We may feel even insecure. And what is more, not only we feel insecure, the other group, if they are a violent group, may even feel violent. They may feel very sore with us and they may even indulge in physical violence against us. So the sense of belonging to one group makes us happy in some circumstances, makes us miserable in some other circumstances. As we grow more mature, we learn the skill of placing various identities of ours, which do have a place in the larger scheme of things, but we learn the skill of placing these identities in their right places. Someone said wisdom consists in a place for everything and everything in its place. If we are Bengali speaking and we settle down in London, and there are a bunch of people who form a Bengali society. Once a month, there is some celebration of Bengali songs and Bengali dance and Bengali food and so on. No wise man would say, don't join that Bengali society. Be a global citizen. Once you have come to London, you have to completely let go of your idea of I am a Bengali. No wise man would say that. If you have grown up in Kolkata or in some city of West Bengal or Bangladesh, so you have a certain background. It has its place, but it should be put in its right place. It should not lead to unnecessary and erroneous wrongly conceived ideas of superiority or inferiority. Friends, even as we talk on an idealistic plane of being just a human being and not letting any other description coming anywhere near us, we know that in the real world there are various identities which do apply to us. Even scientists make their own bodies, their own associations of scientists, association of physicists, of mathematicians, association of geoscientists, association of medical practitioners. Sometime back, I had an occasion to speak to an organization of orthopedic people. So, orthopedics also have their own organization. So, where do we belong? Do we, in the name of being a human being with no other label to be attached to us, do we strip ourselves of any other description? Not really. That is where the awakening of intelligence comes into the picture. When we grow in intelligence, we know where to put what. A place for everything, but everything in its place. So there is an enhanced sensitivity to the so-called others. The so-called others are not others in 99 out of 100 situations. In a certain context, yes, non-Bengalis will not be able to enjoy a Bengali song and Bengali dance, which may not make much sense to them. They may not be familiar. A man of literature will feel lost in a conference of orthopedics. If he says, "You guys are human beings, I am also a human being, and I must get in and I will take the front seat," I need not elaborate further. So there are functional, professional, and various cultural differences between us. However, come back. This is not on that functional level. This observing holistically, observing the whole movement of life is where it is a matter unconnected with language or color of skin, etc. We must be able to play a different card. All right, we are not talking here of what we should do in particular scenarios. Here, the focus is on watching itself. What we do for follows whatever understanding dawns on us following that impartial, unbiased watching. So we say in conditioned thinking, what happens is the self plays a major role. What happens in unconditioned thinking? That's where the second line was given in this topic. There emerges a new approach to things. First of all, from where does that new approach to things emerge? What is its source? The source, friends, is something deeper than thought. Thought, before even thought, even our senses, our tongue, for example, has its urges, has its impulses. Before even we think, when we see some gulab jamun, when we see some rasagulla on a table, the senses themselves start operating. And then our old habits at the level of speech starts operating. So these are called impulses. So someone wrote recently a little article on stages of wisdom. We may not exactly agree with him, we may not exactly go with him, but let me share with you what sounded rather impressive, rather meaningful to me. So that gentleman says, wisdom progresses on these levels. Initially, it is impulses and instincts. There is no thinking also. And then the intellect comes in, and there is some thinking on the basis of some information we may have about persons, about places, and things. Then, in the light of certain you know, due diligence, they call it due diligence. You do necessary homework, you do necessary hard work. In the light of all that, you come upon a better assessment of situations, and you then begin to have a certain noble intention. So, in that article I read, impulse and instinct are followed by intellect, and as we rise further, we are led to use of intention. Then the intelligence in us, in every one of us, keeps operating. I have good intention, I have some noble intentions, but even then, whatever my conscious mind is able to do has certain limitations. So one goes into certain silent moments. And rightly, there is a fifth item after impulse, instinct, intellect, and intention. The fifth item mentioned by that author is intuition. We really don't know what this intuition is, but all of us intuitively know that there is something called intuition. Intuition, which is not necessarily, in fact, which is typically not within the framework of reason. Intuition rises in us. And the author in that article is extra concerned with the social issues. He says it is in intuition that the sixth and last level of progress of wisdom brings us, and that is inclusiveness. In sociology, in socio-political debates, nowadays one of the key words, one of the golden words which opens the doors to you to many conferences, many international platforms is inclusiveness. Are you trying to be exclusive? Just me and my group? Or are you open to be inclusive, including the high and the low, including those who were for centuries neglected or exploited, those who were not heard? Presently, a lady from tribal community is nominated by the major party at the center. She happens to be from a tribal community. And I was reading something this afternoon about her. Then it was said that she belongs to a community which for centuries and centuries were either not heard at all or at times heard but not responded to. Their demands were simply brushed aside. And from that community is a lady candidate from eastern India, and probably she will be the president. Probably, we don't know. Tables may turn, but there is a high likelihood, right? So she perhaps will be a symbol of inclusiveness. Now, coming to self inquiry, something similar happens to us. What we called the emergence of a new approach to things is no different from emergence of unbiased outlooks, emergence of compassion, the emergence of absence of self-interest. We learn to let go of our own benefits. So, are we becoming fools in the process? No. If we foolishly let go of our interest, whatever we do foolishly will make us fools. This world is cruel. If we are foolish, there is a saying in some Indian languages, those who bend get one or two extra fisticuffs. Anyhow, people are giving us fisticuffs. एक मुट्ठी और जो झुकते हैं उनको दो तीन मुट्ठी और मारते हैं लोग. There is a saying in my Kannada also. बग्गिदवರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು गुद्दु ಹೆಚ್ಚು. That's how they put it. उसका मतलब वही है, जो झुकते हैं उनको दुनिया, उनको समाज और भी मारता है. तो foolishly, if we let go of our self-interest, we will suffer. But we are not talking of that idiotic or, dull-witted operation. We are talking of awakening of intelligence. When we are operating on a higher level of intelligence, we let go of our self-interest, knowing very well what doors open, what avenues which were shut before, open before us, and what is more, we are set to walk through that open door. We are poised to walk on that new avenue which has opened. Unintelligent self-negation leads us to neither belong here nor belong there. If a new avenue opens, the dull-witted one who let go of her or his own self-interest would not even recognize, or if he or she sees the avenue, would not have the necessary interest or enthusiasm or energy to grab that opportunity. Therefore, without going very long on this awakening of intelligence is intimately connected with observing and coming upon the coming upon those new approaches. I would just say at this point that the new approach is free of the self and has consideration, compassion, courage, and it's not the compassion of the weak, it is the compassion of the strong. There is certain strength in clarity of seeing. Holistic seeing alone is clear seeing. Unholistic, fragmentary seeing is necessarily partial seeing. So, to conclude my remarks, when we see things from a fragmented view, fragmented way, then it is like we do some good here, but create new problems there. Once a team came to fill some little holes in a football ground when I was a college student. And they said, we are volunteers. They were from another college. They said, we will fill these holes so that you can play football on a really level ground. And they came with big shoes and sticks and so many tools. They did cover a number of pits. But as they moved around the field for a couple of hours, when they left, we saw they created bigger pits at some other places because of their movements. So somebody commented, they filled the old pits and left behind new ones which are bigger than. So it was the irony of it. Friends, unfortunately, so much of progress in this world is like that, all because of lack of holistic view, holistic observation. It's more to show what I can do, more to grab some immediate benefits, more to serve the not so good purposes of lobbies. There are various lobbies who would not let you do something truly wholesome. You serve the lobby, you may get well paid and praised, you may get even some international peace award. But we hear that even Nobel Prize and such prizes have some lobby behind them. We get really very embarrassed. Oh, really? There is a lobby. Life looks hopeless. Whatever I have said clearly, that leave aside the cruelty or the injustice in the world, everything begins with our setting our house in order. Let's examine where we are fragmented. Let's examine where we refuse to see life holistically, where we refuse to see the whole movement of life. We simply and blindly, like the horses with blinds on both sides, let's examine how we actually stay in fragmented view. That's our job. That's our immediate challenge. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Chidanandji. And others are welcome to comment or question by raising hand.
So you may, yes, Pradeep Verma has raised his hand. Would Jain Sahab give him the first chance?
Yeah. Pradeep, please start.
Mike,
Generally he asks and he becomes last. Today he is first. Welcome.
Actually, few moments of silence encouraged me to ask now. So it's a very intriguing and very good topic. Am I audible?
Yeah, very well, very well.
So, very interesting topic, observing the whole movement of life. Of course, observer, wholeness must include the observer. That is first thing. Certain funny questions came to me. Whether one can see life in movement. Movement will first to be recognized, and this movement may distort the picture of life. This may seem to be a very funny question, but nevertheless, it came to me. And another question is, how this wholeness is felt, how one knows that now it is whole. That is another question. Then JK said, whole movement of life is learning. Just one sentence, whole movement of life is learning. Now, to me, this learning is possible in movement when we are extraordinarily attentive from moment to moment. Now, other question comes, which I think Swamiji is the right person, having a very good background in physics and all those computer sciences, etc., etc. Whether moment is a part of chronological time, it works both in my psyche and chronometer both. Invariably, we use this word very frequently, moment to moment, moment to moment. And then at that moment, when it is maybe synonymous with present, which is timeless. So this question often comes to what is a moment, right, sir? So learning, of course, the whole onus comes back to me. Whole movement of life is learning, and I am the learner, I am the observer, and my state of consciousness decides voluntarily or involuntarily everything. Part of that happens in me, I don't know. So these are small questions that come around this topic. Thank you very much for giving me time.
I guess you have asked three questions. and I'll take up the third one. Is it chronological time or psychological time? In this matter, I think both the time axes come into picture. As we move from situation to situation, the chronological date also would have changed, or we would have gone from morning to evening. But what is of more value here is the psychological time. What is more critical? Because what is involved is the detection of our self-centeredness. We need to detect where we are anxious or where we are hopeful, because this anxiety about losing, hope of gaining, etc., revolve around the self. So the expression moment to moment, I guess, is a general expression which takes into account the movement along the axis of chronological time as well as axis of psychological time. But the intelligence has to deal with the psychological time, psychological hope or insecurity, etc. Can you quickly ask the first and one question at a time? What was the first one about?
Whether one can see life in movement, which is cognized first, whether it distorts picture of life. The movement, a very important word in this topic is movement of life.
Correct. Yeah. Really, that's what in tradition they call it Maya. When we are caught in a fragmented angle of view, we think that alone is the truth. Nothing else seems to be the truth. But having suffered enough, having paid a price for our narrow-minded views, here and there life gives us blows. Having learned some lessons, there's some mellowing happens. Having taken part in such dialogues, having maybe read something profound and reflected on it, we open up a little. So the flavor, the feeling, the sense we get when we revisit the same situation from a broader angle of view is one of being unburdened, one of that very welcome feeling of compassion. The one of absence of hatred and presence, some tears coming down our cheeks because we would have hurt somebody, we would have raised a weapon against somebody, we would have talked ill of somebody. But then, in the holistic view, when we observe life as the whole moment, then we realize, we see our handling. Let's say, if it is the case of a past event, the handling was not very right. So there is some regret of our having spoken some irresponsible word, let us say. But along with that, there is a certain good feeling. Now I know. So though there is in essence defeat, there is the exhilaration. Exhilaration means happiness of having risen to a higher level of understanding. So I will conclude my answer what it is to have a holistic observation by just emphasizing this. As we go into holistic observation, we feel very unburdened, very light, filled with certain love and so on. I forgot the second question also. Maybe second question someone else can try to answer, but you may please put it once more.
How does one, you have partially answered that question, how does one feel the wholeness? Because observer is invariably involved in it, although he should not be, as per the teachings, as long as observer is there, there is likely to be disorder and distortion. So observer is conditioned invariably. How practically, how one feels wholeness, You have partially, you have said it, that you feel that lightness and love, both are of course subjective in a way, but anyway, this may be one criterion, but this state can come anytime, even solving a small problem in day-to-day life. But that wholeness is a very big thing. He has been using this holistic and whole word, and this has always interested me. Where am I in this whole? Where am I in this whole? So these questions very, very often make things little messy. So this is what my situation is. Thank you.
I request some others to add to what I had said. I had partially answered this. That's right.
So I will come in. Can I come in, sir?
Please do.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm going to answer Mr. Pradeep's question, but when we are talking of the whole movement of life, can I understand what life is all about? I'm not going to Krishnamurti or anybody else. What is life is about? And when we are talking about the whole movement, the movement of life just doesn't include only the human beings. Life includes every other living beings. We can say earthlings, which lives on the earth. That is what it is. The whole movement of life. And now the emergence of new things. From this, if there is, I'm putting within quotes, an understanding of what life is, which is nothing but greed, envy, violence, killing, murdering, suffering and sorrow, death and life. This is what the whole thing is about. So how do I understand any one of this? Do I look at it is a question. I'm not going to, whether life is holistic or whole, that's what he is putting about. And the whole moment of life is learning. The question is, am I learning anything at all? Or I continue to do every day the same thing, the same monotonous thing, day in and day out. I continue with it. I come for these meetings too. I do come and put some questions and talk. But is there any change? Because the moment I say change, there's a lot of effort is required in it. I'm putting within quotes effort. You have to give. All your life you're spent on doing a particular thing, you continue to do that. And if you don't do that, then you're caught. You're bored. And we don't want to be bored. In fact, if you remain with your boredom, that is where the creativity comes in. None of us want to remain with boredom. I don't want to be bored. I want something exciting to be done. So when we say the whole movement of life, can I observe? It is not what I'm doing. It has become monotonous. It's a repetitive. That is not what life is all about. I don't want to see the killing which is going on. I don't want to see the violence which is going on. I don't want any suffering or sorrow. I want all entertainment, pleasure, and things like that. So when I have an understanding of this, I feel, or that is when there's an emergence of new things. Otherwise, it's the same old thing, which is, it is in a different form. That is about all. I may say it is new. I just cover it up. Over, sir.
Yes. The big question that faces us is, why don't we change? We attend so many dialogues, we speak big ideas, but we are not ready to make any change in our way of living. That's a very big question. So does it mean that we are actually talking about holistic observation, but not really doing holistic observation?
Yes.
We are stuck in our own angle of view.
Yes, yes.
But during such dialogues, we exercise the intellect and talk about holistic observation.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there is a certain contradiction with which we are living, and I fully agree with Anandji. If we just stay with some intellectual appreciation, but in our heart we are unwilling to change, life will be as miserable as ever.
May I say a few words?
Go ahead.
Sir, sorry if I have interrupted you. Sorry if I have
No, I
interrupted
just wanted to
you.
add a sentence that there are some people who insist on a certain practice of remaining silent, listening to their own inner voice, and they use some word. Uh, it means inner voice. They want to strengthen their inner voice, which then will give them the energy to change. Merely talking, merely reading, merely discussing makes the inner voice just stay where it is. That's there. There is this organization which was earlier called Moral Rearmament, MRA. They have a beautiful facility in Panchgani, Maharashtra, for a lot of value-based programs. I'm talking of that organization, Moral Rearmament. Rajmohan Gandhi has been the main person in India. Now they changed their name, Initiatives of Change. That's the organization. It's an international organization. So without going long on it, these initiatives of change say more than any book, Bible or Gita or Krishnamurti book, you need to spend time with your inner voice. Am I walking the right path? What is it that is hurting me? What is it with which I am actually passionate? They ask us to. They have a kind of meditation which they practice. So probably that is what will awaken us to be more conscientious. That is going by our conscience. Otherwise, there are two well-guarded compartments. The conscience has its things to say. That compartment, we do whatever we have to do. That division is a very unfortunate thing. We thought Shakti Kumar might have something to say. I see his name here. What about Dinesh Waghmare? Yeah, Dinesh Waghmare has
Yes,
raised his.
he has raised hand. He has raised hand. He will be speaking. Please, Dinesh, come forward.
Sir, my view, are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yeah. Everybody is able.
Very well.
My views on this are very clear, sir. These are my views, of course. See, psychologically, you are the world, as Krishnamurti said, and we have discussed enough about that from time to time. But practically, we have to see that you are also a fragmented being. As far as action is concerned, you are a fragmented being. My action is my action, not world's action. Yes, it affects the whole world, but my action is my action. So, as Swamiji has already told, first, one has to go into the self-knowing. He should know what are his plus points, what are his minus points, what is his emotional understanding about the things, feelings, etc., etc. And as Krishnamurti has explained that also, and we have discussed about self-knowing also enough number of times. As Swamiji said, I agree with the that writer. Basically, your instincts are the initiatives for or your drives, psychological drives or initiatives for your action. Or then the conditioning comes later on, thought comes later on. So not only you have to understand that, and you should have the self-knowing, and then as he said, you should have the sensitivity for the whole of your relationship. You are related to plants also, you are related to the people also, you are related to even inanimate things also. So you have to be very sensitive. And as he said, I will just use the other words. In management, they say win-win situation. Or in the tradition, they say ji or jine do. Sarva bhavantu sukhinam. So your action should take care of yourself first, as well as the care of other. Jio or jine do. This should be your first intention. And intention is the thing which drives or which initiates everything. So you have to take care of yourself also, and you have to take the other also. If you can do that, then there will be the starting of the holistic observation. That's what my views are. Because you cannot at the same, you cannot be responsible for the Putin section or say any other celebrity's action, but you are responsible for your action. And I would like to take the reference of Gita also. Krishna is very clear. He said that there are two actions. One you love to do, which is pre-action, prayer, which he said prayer. And another action is Shreya, which is pre-action may be beneficial to all or may be beneficial to you only. But Shreya action is that action which is beneficial to all. So you should do the Shreya action, and you should know your role also, and you should do the Yagya. Yagya means you have to take care of actions in such a way that not only develops yourself, but that also develops the samashti or the whole world. It should be beneficial to the whole world. So you have to take care of yourself also and other also. And your role for this, it is very important that you should know your role. What is your role? What are your resources? What is your capacity? What is your capability? What you can do for others also, that you have to see. So I think this covers what Swamiji said, that portion also, that one has to be very sensitive. One has to be very if he has gone that far, then probably that levels of wisdom which he has said may come into being, and then I think probably the intelligence or inner voice may help him afterwards. Because unless he do the self-knowing, the intelligence, whether it will come into picture, I'm having my own doubts. Thank you very much.
You see, a few words.
Yes, sir.
Shakti ji wants to come. Shakti ji.
Yeah. Please, Shakti ji, please come forward.
Yeah, I don't know if my voice is reaching there. Is my voice reaching, sir?
Yeah.
Yes,
it is reaching.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
I just wish to say that it's very nice to listen to the holistic observation, and it is very encouraging also. But when I look within myself, honestly, it seems that there are more than one entities interested in different things, and this it's very difficult. There is a conflict. So Krishnamurti says, watch that conflict. But this situation is far from holistic observation, because it's the person who is looking, and what he is looking seems to be fragmentation. Thank you, sir.
Dinesh, please come forward. Dinesh, please come forward.
Are you able
बोलो
to
और
listen to me?
बोलने दो. जियो और
हाँ.
जीने दो, बोलो और बोलने दो.
We are also talking about the movement. So movement also goes along with the moment, I think. So in a particular moment or in a particular movement, you see the challenges are limited. All of the challenges will not appear in front of you in a particular moment or in a particular moment of life. So if you can understand that challenge also involves you as well as the other. Other means here, what I am referring is other person or other thing or other natural this thing. So if you are sensitive, you are not sentimental, because conditioning will give you the sentimentality. But if you are not sentimental, if you are not having vested interest, then I think you will be able to see what is beneficial to you and what is beneficial to the other. So I think this is enough. You need not understand the whole movement of life. That whole movement, this word is a little bit tricky. The whole movement doesn't mean the whole of the universe, movement of universe. That is what I feel. What Swamiji has to say on this?
Swamiji, Swamiji has to go at 7:15. So please, Swamiji, conclude it.
The clarification that Dinesh Waghmare made is fully acceptable. Whole movement does not mean one knows everything happening everywhere. Rather, in what one comes in contact with, let's say, one doesn't have the bias of the self. One is able to see, it's like there is a beautiful example given elsewhere. You have a crystal. The crystal is small, but in that crystal, if placed on a table, 360-degree view of that hall or that room in which you place the crystal gets reflected. Likewise, you may be a little individual in a little town meeting with a little situation. But like that crystal can capture the whole room upon it, you with certain intelligence can capture a whole lot of things in that situation. You need not know some situation happening in another village, in another town to some other person. But in your situation, it is possible for you to go so deep that essentially, qualitatively, you will come face to face with what people go through at different places in different settings. Sitting in your town, you will go through, you will be able to see clearly what Putin in Russia is going through or what Biden in Washington DC is facing, because fear, insecurity, or some kind of cleverness, some kind of um ulterior motives, etc., are in human mind everywhere. So Putin has them operating in him, Biden has them operating in him. So in your small town setting, in that situation, when you watch holistically, you will observe many hidden forces which were not visible before. So you don't have to go Ukraine war or some issue in USA. But like I'll end again with that crystal example. That crystal is not just that some 20 square inches, which could be its surface area. In those 20 square inches, which is the surface area of the crystal, the whole hall, some paintings on the wall here, something else hanging over there, two swords are put on third wall, All of them are seen there. Therefore, what humanity faces day in and day out, the humanity's mistakes, humanity's secret plans, humanity's ambition, and so on and so forth, qualitatively will get reflected in that one situation you are facing, where maybe your son and another son, your two sons are fighting over a certain piece of land. If you observe the whole situation with no personal bias for or against any particular son, you try to understand what's going on in the human psyche, you will be able to see at that time itself what's going on between Russian president and Ukrainian head of state and so on. So I fully agree that there is no need for everybody to know everything, but everything is contained in the little. What you call in Hindi, you have some gagar mein sagar or some expression. In a little, everything comes in. And that's how you explore. Your intelligence then throws light on some vital issues before you. You make a difference to your surroundings, and one should not have in these matters an ambitious plan. I will change the world. It should not be our decision. I will live rightly moment to moment in small or big situation where I find myself. Then rest of it depends on many other factors. You are right. One doesn't have to know either space-wise, England or Australia, or time-wise also. You need not know what decision was right on the part of some king of the 10th century, some queen somewhere, Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai. We don't have to read history. J. Krishnamurti, I think, at places has actually said clearly. No need to go even to your own childhood. No need to scratch your head. So, did I make a mistake in high school? And did that lead to my being what I am today? Let me examine what I went through in high school days. No need. If you had made a mistake in high school, some bad company, following some person, or getting into some ideology which today makes you get hurt in the no need to remember those years of 70s or around that. Right here, as a certain violence rises in you, certain deep dissatisfaction starts playing its game. If you observe that carefully, the fundamental causes surface. And Krishnaji has said to the effect, you tackle the present, your past and your future will all be tackled. You tackle this moment and your scenario most wisely, you will have insight into whatever might be happening somewhere else in the world. So that whole world is caught, captured in us and the situation around us, which you have also said in your own way. So I agree with that.
दिल जो कहता है मुझसे और मैं जो कहता हूं दिल से, वही जूम मीटिंग में कहते हैं सब दिल से. All are Indorians because you have not to go outdoor in Zoom meeting.
Indore.
So every Zoom meeting is for Indorians. Now the time is 7:15 already, sir. You have to leave it. Just I reminded you. And may I finish it? May I finish it? Or after Prasad, sir? Prasad, sir? Prasad, you wanted to continue? Verma ji, you wanted to continue it?
One or two sentences.
Okay. Let Prasad sir say.
Oh, let him finish first.
Let him finish, and then last one you will be, as usual it was.
Sir, I hope I am audible.
Yeah, you are very well audible with your earphone, such a big earphone.
The whole movement of life, Krishnaji, I was going through one of his talks today. He said, he was talking about death. And then he said, death doesn't mean your death or my death. It is death. that is, normally we are occupied with ourselves. We think of, I think of my death only. But can I think of death generally without reference to the death of somebody I loved or I hated? Similarly, he said, when I speak of a river, you think of your river, the river with which you are familiar. Can you think of riverness, the quality of a river? That is, the water flowing, the glow of the sun on the water, the banks full of trees, that type of riverness. Similarly, mountains. He said, because you are in India, when I talk of a mountain, you think of Himalayas only. But there are various types of mountains and all that. And can you think of the quality of a mountain? Its height, its strength, its solidity, like that, covered with ice, like that. So we normally think of ourselves, our family, our profession, and things like that. Can we extend our vision and think of life in general? Life, the movement of life. As somebody said, life includes everything. It may include even the life of a plant or of a cat or a rat or whatever. So can we think of life in general? And, God. Here we think of God means Lord Rama or Lord Krishna. God for a Muslim means something different. Can we extend our vision and extend the frontiers of our brain or mind? That is how I look at the movement of life. And once your vision extends, there is the emergence of a new mind. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Pradeep Verma, please conclude.
Yes, sir. No, I will not conclude. Teaching say, don't conclude.
It will be continued. But this Zoom meeting will end with you.
Oh, Anandji raised very important questions about the web of life, because man is not the only living thing. And Prasadji also talked about a very intricate web of life, a very highly connected web of life. But I still think that Anand usually takes up what is disturbing to a sensitive person, like misery, suffering, violence, and how vegan program can help the sustenance of life on this earth. So this is also a fragmentary view in a way, although because we all know that jivasya bhojanam is, nobody can question it. You see, it's a question of balance. It's a question of sustenance. If everything is misery and suffering, then what sustains this life in us? What keeps it energized daily in the morning? So that we can also see those aspects of life. These are very important, because I know that Earth is in crisis because of greed in man. Man has become so greedy, corporates and all those things are there. But then it comes back to me as an individual, how am I living my life? How am I living my 24 hours? That only counts, because I may go on crying about what is happening around is so much of it. And that also depends what type of filter I am. If I see only violence around it, I will see plenty of it. If I see certain good things happening, plenty of it. So ultimately it's a balance in me. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you
So,
very much. Thank you
so
very much.
can
May
I-
I end? Anand sir, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. I mean, I just want to make it
Yes.
clear.
You are the last. You are the last speaker. With Anand,
Sir.
we will finish it. With Anand.
Shakti ji
Thank you.
also given message. Is he want to say something?
Oh, yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Let Anand speak.
First
Yes.
Anand, then Shakti, and that will be the end. No more Waghmare then. Waghmare, and Anand doesn't like any killing of animals. He's
I would say killing per se, sir. Killing per se.
killing. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
So when we
Just
talk
I
about
hope.
when
Just
You
we
want to
refer-
exclude me and don't want to keep me in a holistic view.
Anand,
Yeah.
Anand, please say.
Please, please let Anand come forward.
So first and foremost, I'm not a vegan as what it is understood. Actually, whatever has happened in my life, I give credit to Mr. Krishnamurti, nobody else. In fact, when he spoke about, actually the first and foremost, when I heard about 15 years back, when he said you don't love your children, I questioned that. I questioned him when I was reading and listening to him. I said, I question you that. Okay. I said, what is it I need to do to say I love my children? That was about 15 or 20 years back, sir. So over a period of time, when I've been reading Krishnamurti and I've been seeing the way things are changing on this planet, the way the planet is being destroyed, the way ecology is being destroyed, the way the land is being destroyed, the oceans are being destroyed. This is what Krishnamurti has been speaking in every speech. You see, in none of the meetings we talk about it. In every speech, he said, we are destroying this beautiful earth. He said, we are destroying the species. Every day, 100 to 200 species are going extinct. Not because I'm a vegan, I've got this information. It's because Krishnamurti, when he talks about species being destroyed, that's how I got the interest. I've looked up and I find every day to our actions, 100 to 200 species are going extinct. We don't even realize that. See, it is not just the human beings. When we talk about the whole movement, the whole planet, every living thing has got some importance. In fact, without human being, this planet will do extremely well. But without the bees and ants for 1 year, the planet is going to go dead. So one has to understand when K is talking about all these things. And when we're talking about, sir, life, what is life, sir? Does life exist without suffering and pain? The moment I say, you're talking about suffering and pain all the time, you need to understand all the time I want to move it from pain and suffering, I want to have pleasure. Now, pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin. The pleasure, in fact, is one of the major factors for so much of violence happening on the earth. So one has to understand it is not just somebody nobody wants to suffer, sir, no, including the animals or any living being. None of them want to suffer. But what is happening? Can I see that? Can I see my actions is also cause the suffering to the others, not only to other people, other living beings? That is what we need to look at. When we talk about humanity or yourself or myself, it's a very, very, very tiny thing. When he says holistically, he talks about is the entire thing. It's not just you and me and my family and your family.
Yes.
That is what is essential, sir. That is what, I mean, people say vegan. Vegan, actually the real meaning of the word vegan is person who does not use animal products. But nowadays, the moment you say vegan, they think you're an activist. So I understand what Kate talks about all these things. So many people, even when I was in US, somebody said, are you a vegan? I said, I'm not a vegan. So that is what it is. So we need to understand, for the example, the word love has been misunderstood. The word God has been misunderstood. There's so many words. Alone has been misunderstood. Meditation has been misunderstood. We use it very loosely. So the same thing with many of these words. So it is nothing to do with the veganism or what the other people are doing there. It is basically Krishnamurti. I mean, in fact, I did not try to do anything. I'm telling you all very openly, sir. When I understood this, I have stopped using all animal products. It's been more than about 10 or 11 years. So Krishnamurti says, when you radically change, you affect the entire planet. So in fact, scientifically, it's been proven. One individual changes, it may have a 0.0001%, whatever it is, but it does impact. So I don't have to say everybody changes. No, that's completely wrong. I don't want any one of you all to change. But if when I share it with you all, if you all can see it, there's nothing like it. That's all there is. Over, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shakti ji, let Shakti ji say, sir, please. Pradeep ji, let Shakti ji say, as Waghmare has requested it, and he is inclusive of the meeting, not exclusive of the meeting. Shakti.
Shakti.
जी सर, मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा था कि जो होलिस्टिक ऑब्जर्वेशन है वो सुनने में मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है, और उसके प्रति मेरा ऐसा भी नहीं है कि कोई किसी प्रकार की अश्रद्धा हो उस पे। कई लोग होंगे जो उस तरह से होलिस्टिक ऑब्जर्वेशन कर पाते हैं, लेकिन मैं जब अपने भीतर देखता हूं तो मैं देखता हूं कि अपने भीतर ही द्वंद्व है, अपने भीतर ही फ्रेगमेंटेशन है, विखंडन है। तो बृहस्पतिवार को मैं कुछ और होता हूं और शुक्रवार को कुछ और होता हूं। तो मैं अगर होलिस्टिक रोमांटिक मेरे लिए बन जाता है, लेकिन उसको सुनना जरूरी है और अपने पर काम करना भी जरूरी है, वो भी मुझे समझ आता है। थैंक यू।
Pradeep Verma.
No, it's okay. Because Shakti ji has said rightly, this is what learning of, this is learning.
मैं कुछ कह सकता हूँ जैन साहब, अगर आप परमिट करो।
ये इंक्लूसिव करेंगे तुमको, एक्सक्लूसिवली वर्मा जी को बोल लें तो। Let exclusive talk over, then we will include you.
What Shakti ji is very nicely he has said it, and this is what exactly is the learning of the movement of life, what he is telling. This is learning the movement of life. Thank you. Waghmare, over to you.
Wow.
बोलो
Over
सर।
to him. Without interruption.
बोलिए वाघमारे जी।
Sir, can we observe with choiceless awareness that fragmentation as well as holistic view, both are the parts of life and both are simultaneously existing. Both realities are simultaneously existing. So both are, this is our limitation of our mind, that the mind moves either or in or. He says either fragmentation or holistic, but it's not like that. Fragmentation is also there and holistic things are also there. So can a mind transcend this barrier of its own limitation and go beyond and see the things with childless awareness? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Modak, would you please end it choicelessly?
Yes. Holistically. Holistically end करता हूँ उसको सर.
Okay.